Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Akuma Akuma no Mi by Fairystail. Overpowered, smarter Luffy with a different devil fruit will take over the world by using marine powers and the smarts. Brian McKenzie, Warlord. Zach Travis, Warlord. Garrick Russell, Warlord. Ben Brownlee, Warlord. KSG PL4YZ, Warlord. Adios!
Luffy imagined several things would happen when they got to Whiskey Peak. He imagined that they would be attacked. He imagined that it would be a normal island. He imagined that it would be bounty hunters pretending it was a normal island. He however did not imagine that it would be an island filled with bounty hunters pretending to be normal people who would throw a party for pirates. The group docked on the shore and was met by a man with curly hair. Ma. My name is Igarapoy and welcome to Whiskey Peak. I see you have brought back Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday in appreciation for your kind deed. Would you let us throw a party in your honor? Igarapoy said smoothly. Luffy grinned and everyone watching was a little unsettled by it. Looks like the party has already started, Luffy commented. Hey, where's the food? Igarapoy pointed to an inn. You will find an all-you-can-eat buffet right in there. Before he finished talking, Luffy was off running to the inn shouting out food. Everyone's sweat dropped and followed. Within minutes of entering the inn, everyone was caught up in some way or another. Nami and Zoro had gotten into a drinking contest. Usopp was telling lies about how great he was. Luffy was eating enough food for 10 people and the White Raven Cody was sitting in the rafters eyeing everyone. To a normal person it looked like the pirates had let their guard down, but that was not the case. Luffy, when given a chance, would normally eat enough food for 20 people and still complain of hunger. Zoro could literally drink barrels of alcohol without even getting tipsy, yet he had passed out after 12 mugs. Nami and Usopp however had completely forgotten to keep their guards up, and after a few hours of partying they were completely unconscious, while Zoro and Luffy only faked unconsciousness. After the pirates were unconscious, the people of Whiskey Peaks dropped the act and snuck outside to be briefed on the next step of their plan. When the room in the inn was mostly empty, Luffy and Zoro got up and quietly snuck outside only to hear shocked gasps. That skinny straw hat is worth 75 million? Came the surprised voice of Mr. 9. Luffy grinned and then turned to Zoro. I counted at least 100 people in town, assuming they are all Baroque Works agents, that is 100 enemies, take them out. Zoro smirked and drew his swords only for Luffy to stop him. Use one sword style and alternate between your new swords. Luffy told him. Also, do not kill anyone when the cursed sword is drawn, it needs to learn that you are the master. Zoro nodded. And what about you, Luffy? Luffy's grin grew even wider. I am going to find some popcorn and watch. A fluttering of wings could be heard and Cody appeared on Luffy's shoulder. Make sure you join in too, Cody, and you have to stay in bird form. Cody nodded his head and then flew off. Luffy, quickly using Soru, ran into the inn, grabbed several bowls of popcorn and ran back out to watch the fight. Luffy watched as Zoro snuck into the group of enemies and scared them before drawing one of his swords and started to cut the enemies up. Luffy also watched as Cody flew through the enemies, leaving a trail of electricity behind and shocking everyone he passed. It was a massacre, 2 people versus 100. They might have stood a chance if there were 1,000 of them versus the 2 Straw Hats. Luffy noticed that while using the new sword, Zoro seemed to move faster and lighter on his feet. He also noticed that Cody did not use any long-range attacks while in his Raven form. While Cody usually fought up close, he did use a few long-ranged abilities when needed. Time for them to change tactics, Luffy thought. Zoro start using Soru. Cody only use electrical burst, Luffy yelled out. It was as if time froze. None of the Baroque Works agents did anything for a few seconds before slowly turning and seeing Luffy calmly sitting there eating popcorn. Every single Baroque Works agent let out an eat before rapidly backing side. Look, I'm not going to attack you weaklings, okay, now get back to fighting. Zoro and Cody need a good warm-up. The Baroque Works agents nodded numbly and turned to fight, however Luffy watched them. Their movements were too stiff. They were scared to ignore him, but they were too scared to try and hurt Zoro or Cody for fear of death. Luffy sighed, got up and walked over to an unconscious Baroque Works agent. Luffy grabbed the agent's temple and squeezed, causing the head to explode and the agent to die. Now as extra incentive to fight, if you lose then you will die. Luffy told them in a gravelly voice that promised pain and eternal torment. The agents attacked with renewed effort. They now believed Luffy could easily be worth 75 million berries. Luffy sat down and resumed eating his popcorn. Zoro Luffy noticed when using Soru barely seemed to touch the ground. In fact, a few times Luffy saw him use it to run on the enemies' heads. Luffy assumed it was Dai to Zoro touching onto the sword spirit. While Luffy watched Cody, he noticed a few things. The bigger the blast, the less damage it seemed to do. The more damage the blast did, the longer it took to prepare. If Cody did a strong blast of electricity, then the nearby metal objects would be sent flying. Zoro changed swords and don't use any techniques. Luffy ordered the swordsman. Cody, see if you can charge your feathers with shock bombs, then drop them on the enemies. Aye aye, Captain, Zoro yelled while Cody let out a shriek that Luffy took as a yes. The change when over Zoro was instant. No one else could see it, but Zoro's eyes turned a slight purple and his stance was more feral. Zoro charged the enemy head on, and instead of dealing with them quickly, he cut them several times, enjoying their pain. It was clear to Luffy that it was only his promise that stopped Zoro from killing everyone. Cody seemed to be having trouble. While he could put electrical charges in his feathers, they just did not hold long enough. Cody, that's enough, you now have free reign. Cody let out a shriek of excitement. Zoro used Soru now. The swordsman just grinned a very feral grin. Cody flew around the enemies and through their legs, making them cluster together or trip into piles before landing atop them and sending a huge electrical charge through the group. Zoro's Soru was slow. Even the Baroque Works agents could follow it with their eyes, but that didn't matter because instead of using it to dodge attacks or easily maneuver himself, Zoro used it to bowl through the enemies, knocking them over and cutting them up in the process. It was a very raw and primal way to use Soru. Very little technique and thought put into it. Most likely the sword's influence, Luffy thought. After another few minutes, all of the enemies were defeated, though Mr. 9, Miss Wednesday and Igarappoi were nowhere to be seen. Zoro and Cody made their way over to Luffy. Zoro, Luffy noted, was dripping with blood and did not seem to notice until the cursed sword was in its sheath and he was no longer under its influence. It's a shame you're done, Luffy said, pouting slightly. I still have a lot of popcorn left. There was a loud explosion on the other side of the town. Looks like the second act of this show has just begun, Luffy said with a grin that made his two crewmates flinch. What are your orders? Zoro asked. That explosion came from far away, so chances are there is someone else in town. Zoro, you go and guard Nami and Usopp, Luffy said, and instantly the swordsman started running to the inn. Cody, fly back to the ship and guard it. The raven let out a shriek and flew off. Luffy activated his wings and flew over the town until he found Miss Wednesday and Igarappoi in deep conversation with two strangers. Luffy gently landed on a building and resumed eating his popcorn while listening to their conversation. Igaram, captain of Alabasta Security, and Nefertari Vivi, princess of Alabasta, we are here on the order of the boss to see that both of you are eliminated, the male stranger yelled out. Luffy smirked. Interesting, I wonder why a princess tried to infiltrate. Who is this boss? Igaram pulled on his bow tie and bullets shot out of his curly hair at the two strangers. The male stranger sent something small flying at Igaram, and as soon as it touched him it exploded and Igaram fell to his knees. Igaram! Vivi yelled out, only for her to dodge a kick to the head from the female stranger, a girl who was holding an umbrella and floating in the air. Vivi retaliated by slashing a jewel on a string at her, but she missed. The floating stranger then floated back over to her companion and landed beside him. Princess Vivi! Igaram weakly coughed. Please, you must get away from here. Forget about me. If you are to be harmed, Alabasta Kingdom would suffer. Please, princess, you must hurry. So just who is this boss? Luffy yelled out to Vivi. Vivi and Igaram paled while the two strangers just looked annoyed. WHYD, do you want to know? Vivi asked nervously. Luffy gave his evil smirk. His organization attacked my crew. I think it's only fair that I teach him the error of his ways. Don't ignore us, the man yelled, only for him to fling an exploding booger at Luffy. Soru, the booger exploded right where Luffy was, but using Soru he dodged it in time and appeared right behind the strangers and draped his arms around them. Did you just throw your snot at me? Luffy asked dangerously. Everyone froze, they did not even see him move. Did you just throw your snot at me? Luffy repeated. The man whirled around and threw another exploding booger at Luffy, hitting him in the face. Luffy was mostly unharmed by the explosion, but he was very pissed off. Grabbing the man by the head, Luffy repeatedly rammed his face into the ground over and over again, ignoring the explosions that kept happening. Luffy sensed danger coming from above and dodged in time to see the girl fall from the sky at a fast rate and crash into the man with such force that it probably killed him. Unfortunately for her, a great explosion happened as well, completely destroying the street and killing the girl. Luffy pulled himself out of the rubble of a destroyed building, and after a few minutes of looking around he found the unconscious body of Vivi being protected from the blast by a duck that was also unconscious. Luffy effortlessly picked both of them up and made his way to his crew to let them know they are setting sail. As soon as the ship had set sail, Usopp decided to ask the question that everyone was thinking. Luffy, why is Miss Wednesday tied up on our ship, and why is a duck here as well? Luffy pointed at the duck. He is food. Then he turned and pointed to the very angry-looking Vivi, Miss Wednesday. She is going to tell us who is in charge of the people that tried to attack us, Luffy explained. 3, 2, 1. Wait, we were attacked? Usopp and Nami shouted out at once. Zoro was asleep. Cody was doing his best trying to heal Vivi while she was bound and gagged, so it was up to Luffy to explain what happened. The whole town was full of bounty hunters. And Nami and Usopp shouted again. That's it? Luffy said simply before turning around and ignoring them. Luffy pulled off Vivi's gag. Tell me who is the boss of Baroque Works, he said using his gravely and very scary demon voice. Vivi just glared at him. Luffy sighed and with one hand easily picked Vivi up and held her over the edge of the ship. Care to talk now? Crocodile, Vivi shouted in fear. It is Crocodile now, please don't drop me in the sea. Luffy grinned wider than a kid at Christmas and gently put Vivi back on the deck. So the man who is in charge of Baroque Works is the Shichibukai Crocodile. I'm going to have fighting him. Cody frowned in annoyance at hearing that, while Nami and Usopp both freaked out. Wait, you want to fight a Shichibukai? They both screamed loudly. Luffy gave his trademark evil grin. Do you honestly think he stands a chance against me? He asked. Well, no B, but he is Saint still a CC Shichibukai, Nami weakly muttered. Luffy patted her head. We'll be fine, he grinned. How can you be so calm? Vivi screamed. Crocodile will kill you all. She's right, you know you don't stand a chance, came a female voice from the top of the ship. Everyone turned to see a beautiful woman with long black hair and wearing a blue cowgirl outfit sitting calmly on the second floor rail. Vivi went pale while Luffy grinned. Hey look, now there's 2 demons on the ship. Luffy smirked, causing the women to go pale. Miss All Sunday. What are you doing here? Vivi screamed. If you're here for Vivi, you can't have her, Luffs told her, making Vivi smile in relief a bit. Oh, and why is that? Miss All Sunday asked, still somewhat pale. Well, a princess does make a good hostage, isn't that right, Nico Robin? Luffy smirked. This time both Vivi and Miss All Sunday, Nico Robin, were as white as ghosts. What? Vivi screamed. Why, you know who I am, Robin stated, scared. You carry the name of a demon, so I was interested in you, Luffy explained. He quickly took on his demon form. Though unlike you, I am an actual demon. Both Vivi and Robin passed out. Luffy told Cody to take Vivi and watch her in the kitchen. He then told Nami to search and tie up Robin. The search revealed a log pose with Alabasta written on the base, several berries, and oddly enough a vial of water. Time skip. Robin woke up to find herself tied to a chair in Luffy's room with him casually watching her. What are you here? Luffy asked. Robin just watched him, too scared to say anything. Luffy sighed and repeated his question, what are you here? Wanted T to H help, Robin stammered. Luffy was shocked, though he didn't show it. Why? Crocodile is evil, he can't be allowed T to have th the weapon. What weapon? Luffy asked curiously. Robin remained silent. Fine. Why are you working for Crocodile if you think he is evil? Luffy asked. He can help me find the poneglyph, Robin explained weakly. Luffy just sighed before he walked over and undid Robin's binds. Why are you untying me? I have no reason to keep you here, now go, Luffy said before he walked out of the room. Robin chased after Luffy. Wait, before I leave I want to tell you crocodile has eaten the. Don't care. Now get off my ship, Luffy told her, walking away. Robin stood staring at him as he entered the kitchen and a few minutes later left the ship. She never thought anything like this would happen when she boarded the Straw Hat's ship. As Luffy entered the kitchen, he was surprised to find Vivi untied and crouching over an unconscious Cody. Instantly Luffy had his hand around Vivi's neck and was pushing her up against the wall. What the hell do you think you are doing? He growled. Vivi struggled desperately, but she was unable to loosen Luffy's grip. Tears ran down her face as she feared for her life. Luffy tightened his grip, ready to crush Vivi's windpipe, when a weak voice sounded from behind him. Saint, stop, I was feeling weak and I passed out, Cody said weakly. Luffy instantly dropped Vivi, forgetting about her instantly before turning and crouching by Cody. What's wrong? Sick. Probably avis gravedo, I don't have any medicine. Need to find another doctor. Quick, Cody muttered weakly before passing out. Luffy gently picked up Cody and carried him to the bed in the medical room, Vivi following behind quietly. When Cody was tucked in, Luffy turned to Vivi. None of us besides Cody have any medical knowledge, and I cannot risk my crew getting sick, so until we find a doctor you are going to be looking after him, Luffy told her. Do this and I promise safe passage to Alabasta. Vivi weakly nodded and rubbed her now bruised neck. Thank you. I'm sorry, I thought you had hurt him, Luffy apologized before quietly leaving the room. After telling the rest of the crew what happened to Cody and explaining to them why they could not go and visit him, Luffy told Nami to let him know when an island was near, as they had to find a doctor. It had been several days and they had still not seen an island. Thanks to Vivi, Luffy found out that the disease was affecting Cody's powers and his body was covered in feathers, while his right foot had turned into a talon and his right arm was now a wing. From the few times that he had been conscious, Luffy knew that the disease was avis gravedo, and it was a very rare and dangerous disease that only infected those of the avian tribe. Unfortunately, Cody did not have the necessary ingredients to make the medicine. The crew all took the news of his illness differently. Zoro was almost unaffected. He was certain that Cody would hold out until they found him a doctor. Nami was worried that he would die and could constantly be seen deep in thought or standing outside the medical room. Usopp told bigger and more extraordinary stories, but always went silent for a second or two when Cody's name came up. Luffy had to restrain himself from destroying something and would constantly be shifting from his human form to his demon form and back again in anger. The crew also had different ideas about Vivi and having her look after Cody. Usopp was fine and got along with her, and especially with her duck Karoo. Zoro made it clear he did not trust her but went along with it as it was Luffy's decision. Nami was always angry at her and was constantly trying to pick fights or ignore her. Luffy knew he could trust her, though it was only because Vivi needed a ride back to Alabasta. After 5 days of Cody being sick, they were nearing an island covered in snow. Nami, Usopp and Vivi were all done up in coats. Zoro did not seem to notice, and Luffy was wearing at least 5 or 6 coats, shivering violently. Think Edalus Grey from Fairytail. If you don't know who that is, just Google him. Why are you wearing so much? Usopp asked with a grin. Is the great Luffy cold? Usopp cracked up laughing. I'm a demon, remember? Demons live in hell, surrounded by fire, not ice. Luffy explained, then with an evil grin added, don't forget you are to do some training while we are here. I may get you to go on a swim with Zoro later to increase endurance. Usopp stopped laughing. Luffy grinned, and it was at that point that the snow around the island cleared enough for the Straw Hats to see a lot of very angry citizens with weapons. So who is in charge? Luffy asked nonchalantly. Your kind is not welcome here. Leave immediately, a tall burly-looking man ordered. Our friend is sick. He needs a doctor, Luffy said, ignoring the man. I told you to leave, the man said. So you would let a sick man die when you could do something to help? Nami screamed in outrage. The group of people looked uncomfortable. They hated pirates, but they could not let anyone die or they would be worse than pirates. How do we know that you won't cause any trouble while you are here getting your friend looked at? The big man asked. Luffy laughed. There is 6 of us on the ship. Do you expect us to be able to cause any trouble? The man nodded his head. Fair enough. Grab your friend and follow me. Luffy carefully went and grabbed Cody while Vivi helped him. Luffy, Nami and Vivi followed the villager while Zoro and Usopp stayed behind to guard the ship. So where is the doctor? Nami asked impatiently. Up there, the man said as he pointed to a cylindrical mountain that was so high the top was hidden in the clouds. At the top? Vivi asked in surprise. Yes, she lives at the top of that mountain in what used to be this country's castle. Unfortunately, there is no way up there and the doctor only comes down every few weeks, he said sadly. Luffy changed direction and started walking to the mountain. Where are you going? Vivi asked to the doctor. What, you can't possibly think of climbing up the mountain, you won't make it. Vivi screamed at him. Luffy just ignored her as he continued walking and Nami followed. Vivi and the villagers just watched them in surprise until they disappeared from sight. Once they were clear of the villagers, Luffy changed to his demon form and holding Cody in one arm he grabbed Nami in the other arm and flew off to the mountain. He flew over the hills to the mountain. As soon as Luffy reached the mountain he flew up alongside it. Unfortunately, the cold was getting to him and when he reached the halfway mark to the top of the mountain Luffy's wings stopped working and they fell. As they fell in open air, Luffy made sure to throw Nami and Cody as high as he could before some his sword. Luffy then stabbed his sword into the side of the mountain and quick as possible swung himself on it until he was standing on the sword. He then caught Cody and Nami. Unfortunately, the fall was too much and Cody started to cough up blood. You idiot, Nami screamed repeatedly as she pounded Luffy's chest. How could you fall, you idiot? Sorry Nami, not used to the cold, Luffy apologized weakly. Now how are we supposed to get Cody to the doctor? He could die if we don't hurry, Nami cried. Luffy quietly placed his two companions over his shoulders and started to climb the mountain. What are you doing? Climbing, Luffy said simply. Luffy climbed the mountain. Several times he fell and barely managed to catch Nami and Cody before they died, but he never gave up. After a few hours of climbing, Nami passed out due to the cold, but Luffy kept going. He was not going to let his friends die. Soon, just as he made it to the top, Luffy passed out as a shadow walked over and picked him up. Luffy opened his eyes and found himself face to face with a beautiful girl with soft pink hair, wearing a black and gray full body outfit. The girl let out a quiet "eep" and quickly ran out of the room. Luffy looked around and realized he was in what looked to be a hospital room. Luffy stayed lying down and watched as a blue-nosed reindeer walking on two legs walked in, ignored Luffy and walked to a table and started making some medicine. Hello, Luffy said. The small reindeer turned around, saw Luffy wide awake and then ran from the room screaming. Groaning, Luffy pulled himself out of the bed and decided to go find his friends. Luffy walked out of the room and found himself inside a castle that was filled with snow. Shivering violently, Luffy walked through the castle searching room after room. And just what are you doing out of bed, young man? Came a voice from behind him. Luffy turned around and found himself face to face with a fit-looking old lady. Who are you, old lady? As soon as those words left his mouth, Luffy found himself flying as the old lady kicked him through a wall and into Nami's room. You called her old, didn't you? Nami deadpanned. Yup. Luffy grinned cheekily. How are you? How's Cody? Nami smiled happily. Cody is fine thanks to Dr. Kureha, he is almost completely better. Luffy grinned happily. Get back to bed, young man, you need your rest, came the voice of the old lady. But I don't want to, Luffy pouted. Luffy, do as Dr. Kureha says, you have been unconscious for a week, Nami gently told him. Can I have something to eat first? Luffy asked hopefully. Instantly a black arrow came flying out of nowhere and crashed into the wall. Tied to the arrow was a sandwich and a note that said, please get some rest, Luffy-sama. That was weird. Luffy deadpanned before eagerly eating his sandwich. Luffy ended up going back to his room and resting, though several times he would wake up and see food lying there with the same note from before. Luffy woke up to a scream from outside. Quickly as he could, Luffy ran outside to see a big hippo man, a jester and a weirdo with an afro standing over the unconscious bodies of Cody and the reindeer. Hey, leave them alone! Luffy shouted angrily. The hippo man turned and faced Luffy. I am the king of Drum Kingdom, do not give me orders, you insolent peasant, the hippo yelled. Luffy ran forward to punch the hippo away from his friend. Unfortunately, he was still weakened and was not able to dodge a punch from the afro guy. The punch sent Luffy flying into the castle wall. Luffy looked up as the afro guy moved forward for the finishing blow. Arrows swarm, came a female voice as a large number of arrows came falling from the sky and pierced the afro guy, killing him instantly. Leave Luffy-sama alone. shouted the female voice. When everyone looked for the cause of it, they saw the pink-haired girl from before standing on top of the castle holding a bow with several arrows drawn. Everyone watched silently as the girl effortlessly jumped off the castle and landed on the ground without making a sound. "Leave Luffy-sama alone," she repeated. You killed him. I will destroy you," the hippo guy yelled in anger before charging the girl. The girl jumped out the way easily and shot her arrows only for the hippo guy to open his mouth and swallow them whole. Luffy noticed that while the girl was fighting the hippo guy, the jester had pulled out a bow and was aiming at the girl. Zoro moving as fast as he could, Luffy tackled the girl out of the way off the arrow and fell on top of her. "Sorry," Luffy said, grinning cheekily. No problem," the girl stammered, turning bright red. Luffy stood up and helped pull her up. "I'm Luffy, what's your name?" Sally. "Sally Cooper," the girl mumbled, still bright red. "Okay Sally, I've got the hippo, you take out the jester," Luffy told her. Sally could only nod. Sally was embarrassed. She can't believe that she had talked to Luffy-sama, and to make it worse she kept stuttering. He must think she's a weirdo. But Luffy-sama had given her a task to do. She had to take out the jester. She couldn't fail him. Sally fired off several arrows at the jester only for him to dodge out of the way by cartwheeling. I have no idea how he would fight on his own, so I am going to make it more like a jester." The jester shot a flaming arrow at her. "You should not have gone against King Wapple, now you will die," he sneered as Sally dodged the arrow. "I will not fail Luffy-sama," Sally told him before running forward. Point blank shot. The arrow just missed the jester's face, and before she could react, Sally was kicked in the gut and sent flying. "A little girl like you has no chance against me, just give up and die quietly," the jester taunted. Sally ignored him. Unseen arrow. The jester was shocked to find an arrow sticking out of his leg. "Ah, you bitch," he screamed before letting loose a stream of arrows. Sally smirked. Windwalker. Sally jumped up and landed on the first arrow. She then jumped from arrow to arrow, getting closer to the jest. When she was within melee range, Sally attacked. She swung her bow and pushed a small button on it, causing blades to pop out the ends. The blades cut through the jester's neck and he died while Sally smirked victoriously at him. Luffy had no idea where Sally had come from or how she knew him, but she had saved him from the afro guy, and that was good enough for him. Though she did act weird and was really red. Maybe she was sick? Luffy still felt weak, but he needed to beat the hippo guy or his friends would die. So without any warning, Luffy activated his demon form and charged the hippo. Luffy punched at the hippo guy only for him to open his mouth and bite down. Luckily, he moved his arm out of the way just in time. "Stop defying me, I am the king, which means you have to do everything I say. Now stay still and die," the hippo yelled angrily. Luffy just rolled his eyes and using his tail he grabbed the hippo's leg and tripped him over. Before the hippo could get up, Luffy bent down, picked him up by the back of his shirt and threw him off the mountain. Luffy turned and watched as Sally decapitated the jester. Luffy walked over and gently picked up Cody. "Hey, thanks for the help. Do you mind grabbing the reindeer for me?" he called out. Sally straightened up, turned bright red and nodded her head vigorously before moving over and grabbing the reindeer. Together the both of them took the injured inside and after a few directions from Kureha found out where they should be placed. After everyone was being looked after by Dr. Kureha, Luffy turned to Sally. "Who are you?" "I'm Sally." The girl blushed. "I know that, but how is it you know my name?" "Well, I have kinda sorta might have been following you since you first fought Krieg," Sally mumbled nervously. "Why?" Luffy asked, confused. Sally got even redder and steam came off her head. "You were so cool, I just couldn't help myself." "Wait, how did you follow us on the Grand Line?" Luffy asked, confused. "I kinda actually stowed away on your ship," Sally said fast. "Sorry, what?" "I stowed away on your ship," Sally quietly said, looking down. "Oh, okay. So want to join my crew?" Luffy asked plainly. "What?" Sally asked hopefully. "Would you like to join my crew?" Sally jumped up and hugged Luffy tightly. "Thank you, Luffy-sama." "Thank you. I would love to join your crew," she squealed. Luffy laughed and hugged her back, causing the girl to faint. After a few days, everyone was back to full health. Nami was excited that another girl was joining the crew. Cody did not care either way, though found her pretty funny. Zoro, when they got back to the ship, was distrustful of her, though didn't say anything. Usopp kept telling her stories of how he had defeated 50 fishmen at Kokoyashi village only for her to tell him that she was there and had actually saved his life when Chu had gotten up behind him. Vivi completely ignored her and for some reason was more scared of Sally than most of the other crew, though she would not say why. Sally told the crew about how she young age on how to be stealthy and had used those skills to rob from many criminals. She also mentioned that she wielded a saber bow, though she was a better archer than anything else. When asked why she joined the crew, she only looked at Luffy before blushing bright red. Everyone besides Luffy picked up on the fact that she liked him, though Luffy thought she was sick and kept saying she should let Cody have a look at her. She also quietly followed Luffy around looking for any reason to help him, including cooking for him whenever he was hungry. The one time Nami tried to help Sally had just glared at the navigator until she left. And Sally kept scaring the crew by the fact that she made no sound at all when she walked, so several times someone would turn around and jump in fright at seeing her there. Even those trained in observation haki would not notice her. They had finally landed on Alabasta. They had stopped off at a port to make sure they had enough supplies to cross the desert and make their way to Rainbase to stop Crocodile. Earlier in the day, a weirdo dressed up like a ballerina had ended up on their ship. He had eaten a devil fruit that let him copy other people's looks and voice. After touching each of the Straw Hats' faces and showing off his power, most of the crew started dancing with the weird man. It was as soon as the man introduced himself as number 2 that a passing ship came by and picked him up. The Straw Hats were standing there shocked. The Straw Hats had split up to go get the needed supplies. Usopp and Zoro went to go get food and water. Cody went to go get medical supplies. Nami and Vivi went to get clothes to cross the desert in. Luffy ran off to find a restaurant to eat in, and no one had any idea where Sally disappeared to. Luffy ran off excitedly. No one on the ship could cook properly and he was finally going to get some real food. Eventually, after getting lost a few times, Luffy found a restaurant and ran inside, crashing into someone and sending him flying through a wall. Luffy ignored this and turned to the barman. "Give me lots of food," he cheered. Everyone in the bar looked at Luffy completely shocked. "Aw kid, you may want to run," the barman said nervously. "But I'm hungry," Luffy whined, pouting. "Kid, you really should run," the barman said, sweating. Before Luffy could say anything, someone punched him and sent him flying into a wall. "Hey," Luffy complained, standing up. "What was that for?" "That is for running away back in Log Town," came the familiar voice of Smoker. Luffy looked up and saw a very angry Smoker looking at him. "Hey Smoker," Luffy grinned. "What are you doing here?" "I am here to capture you, Straw Hat." "Okay, have fun with that," Luffy said before turning to the barman. "Hey, how long will my food be?" Smoker growled and punched Luffy again, sending him flying. "Don't ignore me, damn it." "But I'm hungry," Luffy pouted, completely unaffected by the punch. Every single person in the bar watched on in shock. Fire Fist, a fireball the shape of a fist, came slamming into Luffy but did not affect him at all. "Luffy, what do you think you are doing?" "I was eating," came another voice. Luffy looked up and smiled. "Ace, long time no see. Did you throw that fire? Did you eat a devil fruit?" Luffy asked excitedly to the new man. Smoker smirked. "I am going to arrest both of you right now." Ace just yawned, walked up and placed his arm around him, and the two walked out of the restaurant talking. "Don't ignore me," Smoker yelled. Ace turned around and looked at Smoker as if he just realized he was there. "Oh right. Smoker, could you pay my bill?" "Thanks," they then walked off. White out, a wall of smoke went surging towards Luffy and Ace, only for the two to jump to the side. "Oi Luffy, first to the docks wins," Ace shouted out. "You're on," Luffy grinned cheekily and started running, Ace and Smoker behind him. After a few minutes of running, Ace stopped. "Shit," he muttered. Luffy paused and saw the strangest person he had ever seen standing in front of him. It was a man dressed as a marine, carrying a large amount of plushies in his arms and with face paint in the style of a cat. The man completely ignored Luffy and Ace and called out with a grin, "Oi Smokey, look what I found." Smoker facepalmed. "Damn it Joshua, can't you see that I'm chasing pirates?" he growled in anger, embarrassment. Luffy laughed at this ridiculous sight while Ace stood still, sweating. The man Joshua blinked as if he had just seen them, then his gaze hardened. "Long time no see, Ace," he spat angrily. "Now Joshua, you aren't still upset about last time, are you?" Ace asked nervously, backing away. Joshua carefully placed all of his plushies on the side of the road and childishly told them to stay before turning back to Ace. "You turned Kirby to ash, you bastard," he growled. "It was an accident, I swear," Ace said nervously as he backed up into a wall. "Smokey, he's mine," Joshua spat before charging Ace. Luffy cracked up laughing. This strange guy had Ace scared. Normally Luffy would jump in and help, but he realized instinctively that this was a personal thing and the Marine Joshua was a Marine with honor, so Luffy just grinned and shouted out, "See ya at the harbor, Ace," before running off. Luffy had made it a few streets before Smoker attacked him from behind and sent him flying into a wall. Luffy pulled himself to his feet unharmed. "Hey Smokey, who was that?" "Not your concern," Smoker said sternly, walking towards Luffy. Luffy smirked. "You can't beat me, so just give up." Smokescreen smoke billowed out from Smoker in all directions, completely obscuring Luffy's sight. "Kick with the left leg. Punch with the right arm. Slash with your jute. Headbutt," Luffy said calmly, dodging every attack with ease. "Stop dodging and fight, damn it," Smoker growled. "Smoker, you need to concentrate when you attack. Imagine that your very spirit is powering that attack," Luffy told him. "If you do this, then you will learn armament hockey." "I don't need your help," Smoker growled, punching Luffy in the face. Luffy used both armament hockey and a partial transformation so that the punch didn't even make him flinch. "Smoker," Luffy said calmly, "you can't hurt me. The only chance you have of beating me is to use underhanded means, and we both know that you have too much honor for that. I won't stoop to taking help from a pirate." Luffy sighed and punched Smoker, sending him to his knees. "Your choice, but you need to get stronger if you want to have any chance against me," Luffy said before walking away. "Wait," Smoker called out as he weakly got to his feet, "how do you know Fire Fist?" Luffy grinned wide before he left, saying, "He's my older brother." Ace just found his little brother and he had to run into Mickey Joshua of all people. Ace felt cursed. "See ya at the harbor, Ace," Luffy shouted before running off. Ace ignored Luffy and stared at the angrily approaching Joshua. Without any warning, Joshua pulled out his whip and with a flick of his wrist it wrapped around Ace. With another flick of his wrist, Ace went flying and crashed head first into a nearby stall that was selling mirrors. "Fuck," was all Ace managed to get out before Joshua walked out of one of the mirrors and kicked Ace, sending him flying. "Because of you, Kirby is dust," Joshua shouted out angrily. "I'm sorry," Ace weakly said as he coughed up blood. "It was an accident." Joshua sent out his whip and threw Ace into the mirror stall, sending shards of mirror everywhere. "Sorry, won't bring him back," Joshua yelled. "I'll buy you a new plushie." Ace once more pulled himself to his feet only for Joshua to appear behind him and punch him to the ground. "You can't just replace him, Soru." Ace only made it a few steps before Joshua's whip tripped him up and he fell down again right next to Joshua's plushies. Ace reached out and grabbed a plushie. "Let me go or I burn it," he said weakly. "You wouldn't," came the shocked voice of Joshua. Ace pulled himself to his feet. "Will you risk it?" "You are evil," Joshua gasped in fear, threatening an innocent plushie. "Give me your word I can go and I promise Yoshi will be safe," Ace told the Marine. "Okay, just take care of him please," Joshua begged, tears in his eyes. Ace smiled gently, "I promise," and ran off while holding a green dinosaur. Luffy and Ace made it to the Going Merry, and after a brief introduction in which everyone was surprised to find out Luffy had a brother, the group set sail for the Sandora River. While they were sailing, Luffy called the blushing Sally into his quarters. "Can I help you, Luffy-sama?" she asked nervously. "When we entered this town I saw several Baroque Works agents and several of their ships. I was even followed by them for a while," Luffy said, looking at the girl coolly. "Any idea why when we left not a single one could be found anywhere, yet their ships were still in port?" Sally blushed even brighter and refused to look anywhere but at her feet. "They wanted to hurt you, Luffy-sama," she muttered. "What happened to them?" "I killed them," she mumbled, still not looking at him. "You killed them, yet no one in town noticed?" "I saw no bodies and heard no mention of any fights beside the ones me and Ace got into." "You killed at least 100 people without anyone noticing. You said you were raised to be stealthy and to steal from criminals when you were younger. I did not ask anything else because I did not need to know at the time. However, now I am asking. Just who are you? Who trained you? What are you trained as? And are you a danger to my crew?" Luffy asked completely without emotion. My name is Sally Cooper. I am the last in a long line of thieves. My family was known as the Cooper clan, and every Cooper was a master thief. No one could ever catch us, and if we wanted to steal something it was as good as ours. When I was 6, an enemy of our clan attacked and brutally murdered my family as I watched through a false floorboard. After that I swore revenge and practiced to further my skills. Unfortunately I was trained as a thief, not an assassin. That is when I got an idea. When I was 8 I found a hidden assassin clan, snuck in and then showed myself, demanding that they teach assassins. Raised me and I grew and learned under them. They taught me how to kill, how to hide the evidence, how to infiltrate, how to poison, and many more, and with their training I was able to kill the ones who slaughtered my family. After I tried to leave I found out that they wouldn't let me. Anyone who knows the clan's secrets could not be allowed to leave. So I snuck away and ran, and they chased after me. The clan is known as Nigrum Sajida, and they still hunt me to this day. Sally said, by the end of it, tears running down her face. Will you get rid of me now? Without saying a word, Luffy got up and enveloped Sally into a hug. He knew who Nigrum Sajida was. Everyone heard the stories of the assassin clan. It was said that they walked in shadow, and if you were put on their hit list you were as good as dead. They killed anyone and everyone. The only people they did not kill was people they believed would change the world. They were a group of assassins that even the world government did not anger for fear of retaliation. And here Luffy had a marked woman on his crew. There was only one thing he could say to that. I will protect you, he promised. Sally looked at Luffy with eyes full of fear. BB but LL Luffy sama THTH, they will KKKKKK kill you, she cried. Luffy grinned. Don't worry, I'm strong and I won't let them lay a finger on you. Sally continued to cry into Luffy's chest until she eventually fell asleep. Being careful not to wake her, he gently carried her to his bed and lay her down before silently exiting the room to let her sleep. Luffy walked into the kitchen to find the crew talking and laughing with Ace. Luffy noticed something very amusing was held in Ace's hand. So Ace, Luffy said, smirking, care to explain why you are holding onto a plushie? Ace turned bright red and mumbled something that sounded like shut up. Hey Luffy, are you two really brothers? Usopp asked. She yeah, Ace is my big brother and the only person besides Gramps who could beat me in a fight. Luffy laughed, though not often. The whole crew was stunned. You beat Luffy? Nami asked incredulously. Yeah, we were pretty even when we were younger, though now I have gotten stronger. Luffy has no chance against me now, Ace said, smirking. Luffy grinned as he sat down. Fire Fist, Ace of the Whitebeard Pirates, and a logia type devil fruit that gives you the power over fire, which if you remember I am immune. I don't need my devil fruit powers to beat you, little brother. Ace and Luffy glared at each other for a few minutes before suddenly breaking into laughter. So what brings you here, Ace? Hunting a bastard called Teach, and I heard you were in the area, so I figured I'd stop by and meet my little brother's crew. Of course guys, this is Ace. Ace, this is my crew, Luffy said energetically, making everyone facepalm at the introductions. I'm Nami, the ship's navigator. Zoro, first mate. I am the great Captain Usopp. Hey, I'm Cody the doctor. My name is Vivi, nice to meet you. Greetings, I am Portgas D. Ace, 2nd Division Commander of the Whitebeard Pirates and this guy's older brother, Ace said politely. So Ace, what did this Teach guy do? Luffy asked while everyone marveled at how polite the older brother was. Ace's face filled with rage. He killed his Nakama over a devil fruit, he spat. Want some help killing him? Luffy asked coolly. Ace grinned, though the rage was still there. Nah, I can take him. But I do have a proposition for you. Not going to join Whitebeard, I am going to be the king of the pirates, not him, Luffy said instantly. I knew you would say that, but I had to ask. Hey, where is that cute girl you were talking to before? Oh, Sally? She is in my room sleeping, Luffy said calmly. 3, 2, 1. EHHHHH, everyone screamed. I can't believe it, my little brother finally got himself a girlfriend, and such a beautiful one as well, Ace said, shocked. Luffy raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Come now Luffy, you and her go to your room for an hour, and when you leave she is sleeping in your bed. You can't tell me nothing happened, Ace said suggestively. We were just talking. She got tired and fell asleep, so I placed her in my bed, Luffy said as if it was obvious. Oh yeah, what were you talking about? Nami asked, smirking. It's a secret. Come on, you have to come up with a better lie than that, smirked Usopp. But I'm not lying. Then what were you talking about? Usopp again. I told you it is a secret, Luffy growled, starting to lose his temper. Guys, maybe we should drop it, Vivi told the group quietly. Come on Luffy, you don't have to lie, you can tell us the truth, Cody said, smirking. Oh shit, was all that Ace could say before Luffy's form changed from human to demon rapidly over and over again. The shadows in the room started dancing around and darkening into complete darkness. Luffy slammed his fist on the table, destroying it. So you think I am lying? That I do not trust you enough to tell you the truth? Is that it? Luffy growled. Then why won't you tell us what you talked about? Nami asked quietly, shaking in fear. Because it is not my secret to tell, Luffy roared. We may be Nakama on this ship, but I know for a fact that each of us has a secret we have not told anyone else, something we fear or are ashamed of in our past, and yet I do not try and ply you for information. I thought you would be respectful and do the same. Sally was telling me some of the horrors of her past, and as a result she was crying to herself. She was scarred that because of what she had done that I would kick her off the crew. I comforted her just like I comforted you, Nami, when you told me about Arlong. The only difference is that we cannot do anything but be there to support her. Now I am going to say this once: her secrets are her own. If she wants to talk to you about them, then she will. If you need to know them, I will tell you, otherwise drop it. By the end of his speech, Nami was in tears and the crew looked ashamed of themselves. Sorry, Nami cried. Usopp and Cody echoed her. Luffy's face softened and her turned back to his human form. I will not lie to you or do anything to show mistrust, is that you do the same. The only time I will ever ply you for information you do not wish to give up is if I believe it to be a threat to the crew, understood? The crew all mumbled a yes. Good, now it's late. Since my bed is occupied, I will take first watch, then we will go down the river tomorrow and make our way to Rain Base. Good night, Luffy said as he walked out of the kitchen. What happened to Smoker and Joshua? Two Marines were standing at the harbor as they watched the Going Merry sail away. Damn it, Smoker growled before noticing his companion was crying. What's wrong with you, Joshua? Joshua handed Smoker a bag. Look what I found, Smokey. Inside the bag was several Kirby plushies and a note. These guys need a good home, please take care of them. Signed, Portgas D. Ace. P.S. I am looking after Yoshi. P.P.S. Please don't kill me. For no apparent reason, several chests of Aztec gold appeared on Buggy the Clown's pirate ship. For no reason whatsoever. It's not like the author is trying to bribe him or anything. Insert awkward laugh here. After dropping Ace at his destination so he could go hunt down Blackbeard, the Straw Hats continued sailing down the river to reach Rain Base. Halfway to their destination, Usopp gave the crew some news. Presenting the Klima tact, Usopp shouted out, holding up a blue pole. Everyone just stared. You guys are so heartless, can't you pretend to be in awe? He screamed, tears in his eyes. What is it? Cody eventually asked. Why, thank you for asking. The Klima tact will give the user power over the elements themselves. You can make it rain, create wind or lightning. If you use it right, you may even create mirages. This is the perfect weapon for a navigator, Usopp bragged. Awesome, Luffy shouted, stars in his eyes. Give it a try, Nami. Nami walked forward and after a few instructions from Usopp starts to practice with the Klima tact while everyone watches. After a while, the only people watching are Luffy and Cody, though Nami stops when a lightning bolt got a little too close to Luffy. Sally drew her bow, threatening Nami if she did that again. Eventually the crew made it to Rain Base and everyone split up. Luffy and Usopp went to go and get water. Nami and Vivi decided to do a little shopping. Zoro got himself lost. Cody and Sally went to look for information on Crocodile. Luffy and Usopp ran to the closest restaurant and ordered several kegs of water. While they were waiting, they heard the person next to them saying, "Why do you think the Straw Hats are coming here to Rain Base, sir?" "Oh, going to kill Crocodile," Luffy said nonchalantly before freezing. Luffy and Usopp slowly turned and saw Smoker and Tashigi sitting there in the middle of a meal. Just a second, Luffy placed several berries on the counter, grabbed the kegs of water, thanked the barkeep and then ran. "Stop right there, Straw Hat," Smoker yelled out as he gave chase. Usopp and Luffy were running when an arrow appeared on the ground with a note attached to it. Grabbing the arrow and note without stopping, Luffy began to read it. Dear Luffy-sama, the Shichibukai crocodile has his base in the casino in the middle of the town. While there are many of Baroque Works agents, I have taken care of the ones at the casino, so security should be lax. Cody and I will alert the others to meet you there and follow in at a later point just in case there is a trap. Your servant Cooper Sally. P.S. I apologize but I am unable to slow down Marine Captain Smoker as his devil fruit powers are unaffected by anything that I could try. Luffy grinned. Oi Usopp this way, he shouted before turning down a side street. Drop the barrels, they'll just slow us down. Damn Luffy, can't you just knock him out? Usopp cried, gasping for breath. Luffy smirked. Nah, he is coming with us to watch me kick Crocodile's ass. Luffy, Usopp, Nami, Zoro and Smoker were sitting in a cage. Outside of the cage was Nico Robin looking very pale, Vivi tied to a chair and Crocodile who was gloating over their failure. Nami and Usopp were crying and begging to be released. Zoro was having a nap. Smoker was meditating, though you could occasionally hear him mumble, "Damn Straw Hat," and Luffy was deep in thought. Suddenly everything got a whole lot worse. Never mind the fact that Crocodile had them trapped. Never mind the fact that Vivi could die. That was nothing compared to what happened next, and all of the captives and even the captors were in hell, all except one. 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. TAE one down and pass it around, 98 bottles of beer on the wall. 98 bottles of beer on the wall, 98 bottles of, sang Luffy loudly, causing everyone to bang their heads on the nearest hard surface. Shut up Aleady. Crocodile yells in anger. You're my hostages, take this seriously, damn it. Luffy stops his singing to everyone's relief. But why? Because you're going to die, Luffy yawned. Hey, can I have some food? Take this seriously, Nami yelled, hitting him on the back of his head. Brr, I'm so bored, Luffy whined. You're bored? Crocodile asked incredulously. You're being held captive, you're going to die and yet you're bored. Yeah, Luffy said as if it was the most obvious thing. Crocodile sighed and began walking out of the room. Just flood them, he ordered Miss All Sunday, Nico Robin. Robin nodded slightly before following him. At the door she pulled a lever and water poured into the room. Everyone in the room was freaking out, and as soon as Crocodile left, Vivi ran over to the cage, desperate to break the group out. Luffy smirked and, slowly rising to his feet, summoned his sword. Without any warning, Luffy jumped up and slashed a massive hole in the roof. Hey Smokey, help my crew get out, he called before moving through the hole, and a few seconds later the roof above Vivi was destroyed and Luffy fell through. Why didn't you do that earlier? Usopp shouted. Luffy rolled his eyes, because he would have killed Vivi, duh. Luffy grabbed Vivi and jumped up through the hole. Once everyone else was up, he turned to his crew and Smoker. Smokey, Crocodile is the one who started the war. He started it, I believe, to gain access to the great weapon Pluton, which is believed to be hidden somewhere on the island. My crew will go and stop him and his agents, however I need you to try and get the Marines to stop the war. Fine. I'll help you just this once, Straw Hat, Smoker growled before walking away. Luffy then turned to his crew. You guys go and try stop the Baroque Works agents, I have something I need to do first. Do not fight Crocodile, he will kill you. I'll send Sally and Cody to help. With that, Luffy grew his wings and flew away before anyone could respond. The crew had spent several minutes cursing over what Luffy had done before they did as ordered and made their way to Alubarna to help Vivi and stop Baroque Works. They were greeted on the way by Sally and Cody. When they saw the city within their sights, they split up to enter from different sides and the battles begun. Sally and Usopp tried to enter through the east side of the city when a large man appeared out of a hole in the ground and shouted "Fore!" Before they could react, a baseball came flying at them and exploded, sending them flying. What the hell was that? Usopp asked weakly as he pulled himself to his feet. Exploding baseball, it came from behind us. He then hit it with his large bat. Look around us, there are holes everywhere, I'm assuming he uses those to move around, be careful, Sally said calmly as she jumped away from Usopp, spreading out. Smart one, aren't you, Ba? Quickly said a voice from behind. Turning around, Usopp and Sally saw an old lady that looked a lot like a penguin. It's a penguin lady, Usopp shouted in surprise. I'm a mole woman, damn it, she shouted back. Sally watched as Usopp jumped to the side to avoid the ball, only for it to curve and hit him in the back before exploding. Damn it, Luffy-sama will be upset if Long Nose dies, Sally growled. Arrow swarm, she shot several arrows at number 4 only for him to disappear down a hole and appear out another one. Damn, how do I kill him if he disappears down the hole? I need to find the one throwing the balls, she muttered. Arrow swarm. This time she shot several arrows at Miss Merry Christmas, missing her as well. Desperately looking around, Sally saw a dog, cannon-looking thing sneeze and a baseball came flying out of its mouth. Found you? She murmured. Fore. Unfortunately, Sally forgot about Mr. Fore and took the explosive ball straight in the back. You're dead now. Dead, 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 Miss Merry Christmas said quickly as she appeared over Sally with her claws ready to strike. Hey penguin, came a shout. I told you I'm a. Miss Merry Christmas stopped talking to see an amazing sight. Usopp was standing on the unconscious form of Mr. Fore holding a giant hammer with 5 tons on it. Usopp walked forward casually twirling the hammer. I guess you don't know who you're dealing with. People fearfully call me Lord of Destruction. Remember my name, for I am the great Captain Usopp, he exclaimed proudly, stopping right in front of the woman. How are why you holding that? A pipsqueak like you. Mr. Fore can only hold a 4-ton bat, she said, frightfully backing up. Usopp smirked. Like this. Usopp pound. He swung the hammer forward, hitting the woman on the head only for the hammer to crumple like the paper it was made from. Surprised Miss Merry Christmas didn't react when Usopp pulled out his slingshot and shot her with an exploding star, knocking her out. You're not dead, Sally said, pulling herself to her feet. Luffy-sama will be pleased. You could at least pretend to care, Usopp cried. Fore came Mr. Fore's cry as a baseball flew towards them and the two barely managed to dodge out of the way. Damn, he's awake, Sally muttered as she ran towards the dog thing. Windwalker. As soon as another baseball was shot, she jumped on it. Just before she reached Mr. Fore, she jumped and landed on his shoulders. Point blank shot. With that, she shot an arrow through his skull, killing him instantly. Sally lightly jumped to the ground. Let's go, she ordered. Come on, I'm tired. Can't we at least rest? Usopp whined. No, Luffy gave us an order and we will complete it now. Let's go, she ordered, walking away. Usopp followed. Cody let out a shout of excitement. He had landed in the city a few minutes ago and finally found a clothes shop. A few minutes later, he left the shop in a set of clothes similar as his usual set. Running through the town looking for Baroque Works agents, he saw Nami up ahead leaning against a wall. Hey Nami, he shouted, waving to her. Hey Cody, she said, smiling to him seductively. Cody paused. Nami, are you feeling all right? He asked nervously. I'm perfect, she said as she walked over to Cody, swaying her hips. Nami paused just in front of him and smirked. There is something I have to say, she said a little demurely. What? He gulped nervously. Ballet Kenpo. Cody was kicked in the stomach and sent flying through a nearby house out the other side. When he weakly pulled himself up and through the now ruined house, he saw Mr. 2 standing there where Nami was. Should have known it was you, Cody coughed. Come now, you know my disguises are perfect, Bon Clay said, walking towards Cody. Besides, I bet you can't attack your team members. With that, Bon Clay turned to look like Nami again. Taser punch. Cody punched Bon Clay and sent him flying with the electric blast. Just cause you look like her doesn't mean you are her, he said, smirking. Bon Clay pulled himself to his feet. Very well, face my ballet Kenpo, he said, charging Cody. Twa 3 kicks hit Cody, sending him to his knees, coughing up blood. Cody smirked weakly. Nice kick you have there. A ball of blue electricity fell out of Cody's hand and rolled forward. Electro grenade. The ball exploded and shocked Bon Clay, sending him to his knees. When he pulled himself to his feet, Bon Clay noticed a pile of Cody's clothes nearby, several white feathers surrounding him and a white raven flying around, dropping said feathers. As he watched curiously, the raven changed forms in mid-air and a very naked Cody landed on the ground on one knee with his hand touching the ground. Due to training, he can change forms quickly now. Bon Clay watched astounded as the air around Cody started to crackle with electricity. Electric grid. A burst of electricity left Cody and jumped to a nearby feather, then to another and another. Eventually every feather in the vicinity was connected to a grid of electricity and it was surrounding Bon Clay. Bye-bye, Cody said with a smirk as he threw an electro grenade at Bon Clay, knocking him back into the electric grid, which killed him instantly. Cody quickly got dressed in wall pharmacy so he could bandage himself up. Nami ran around the corner and leaned against the wall, panting. I'm not ready for this, she panted. Suddenly a spike pierced the wall behind her and pierced through her left arm. She fell to the ground with a scream. She watched as several holes appeared in the wall and then the wall collapsed into a door-shaped hole and Miss Doublefinger walked through. Nami weakly pulled herself to her feet. "You can't run away from me, darling," Miss Doublefinger said, walking towards her. "Have you figured out my power yet? I have eaten the spike fruit," she said, smirking. Nami gritted her teeth and pulled out her claim attack. "Goodness, you're not really going to try and fight me, are you?" "That's right," Nami said weakly, smirking. "Face my cyclone tempo." With that she swung her claim attack and a crosspiece went flying towards Miss Doublefinger. When it touched her, a big gust of wind blew her down the street before the crosspiece boomeranged back, joining back onto the claim attack. Miss Doublefinger pulled herself to her feet. "Looks like you can fight after all." She ran forward and sent several spikes through Nami, impaling all her vital organs. Before Miss Doublefinger could celebrate her victory, Nami shimmered and then disappeared in a haze. What? Thunder tempo! A giant thundercloud appeared over Miss Doublefinger, and before she could dodge out of the way, a lightning bolt came out of it, electrocuting her and knocking her out. Nami leaned against a nearby wall, cradling her injured arm. "I won." Zoro Onigiri. Toragari. Ushibari. Soru Onigiri. Zoro pushed away from Mr. One. "Your body really is as hard as steel," he said with a smirk. "What will you do?" Mr. One asked. "I can't cut steel yet," Zoro said with a slash, "but now is a good time to learn." Mr. One smirked. "It's impossible to cut steel." He swung his arm only for Zoro to block with his swords. "Hawkeye did it." "You're not Hawkeye." Mr. One kicked Zoro in the chest, cutting right through it, luckily missing any organs. Zoro staggered back weakly and used his swords to hold him up. "Did you know it is possible for a swordsman to cut nothing?" he asked. "My sensei told me when I was younger that it was about reading the spirit of the sword and altering it so it wouldn't cut anything." "What is your point?" Mr. One sent a punch trying to cut Zoro's neck, only for the swordsman to stagger out of the way. Zoro placed two of his swords in their sheaths and held his Wado Ichimonji. "If you can cut nothing, then you should be able to cut everything." Closing his eyes, he concentrated on his sword spirit like he had practiced many times before. Mr. One watched in shock as a white mist started to appear around the blade before surrounding Zoro. Mr. One charged forward, sending a haymaker at Zoro to kill him, but before he knew it, his arm was cut off. Staring in shock, Mr. One looked at Zoro and saw that he seemed to flicker between two images. One was Zoro, but with glowing white eyes. The other appeared to be a calm-looking old man wearing white priest robes. Without any warning, the old man moved forward and cut Mr. One through the chest, killing him instantly. The old man turned to mist and re-entered the sword before Zoro passed out. Luffy was standing in the middle of the desert on top of a sand dune, looking as his shadow stretched out behind him, darker and longer than it normally is. With an evil-looking smirk, he watched as his shadow stood up, towering over him, and began to swirl around him. Luffy was flying over the city of Alubarna, looking on his way to the castle, and he was pissed. Below him, fathers and sons were fighting each other. Brother against brother, friend against friend, neighbor against neighbor. It all pissed him off. These people all claimed to want what's best for their country. They claimed to be doing good. Then why were they killing each other? Why were they massacring innocents who didn't want anything to do with this stupid war? How could they claim to be fighting for what's right when they were doing so much wrong? Luffy knew that Crocodile had manipulated all of them. He knew that if all of the people knew what had happened, they would stop. But even then, he would never turn on his friends like that, so why did they? Luffy decided he was going to put a stop to this now. Luffy let out a loud roar that could be heard all over the city. Everyone paused in fear. Some primal instinct deep inside of them knew that sound meant death to all who angered its creator. Luffy landed on the ground with a loud bang, causing the dust to rise up and obscure him from view. When the dust disappeared, everyone who saw him gasped, screamed, passed out, or wet themselves. Standing in front of them was a creature from the darkest of myths. It was 6 feet tall, covered in muscles. Scales the color of night covered its entire body. Decaying wings sprouted from its back, the scent of death emanating from them. 2 1-foot-long horns on its head. Eyes that burned like hellfire. Claws that could rip a person to ribbons. It was wearing black metal armor that seemed to contain souls of the damned inside it. In one hand it held a rusty-looking scythe, the handle made from bone. In the other hand a 6-foot-long great sword. What the hell is going on here? Luffy roared in anger. Everyone shook in fear. Well. BB because of them the CC country is dying? A rebel stuttered. You guys are the ones who started this damn war, a guard yelled. It's your fault, not ours. A rebel yelled back. Silence, Luffy roared, shutting everyone up. You all are despicable. I have seen people beg for mercy and be cut down like cattle. I have seen those WHO refused to fight be killed because of it. You claim to be doing what's right for this country, yet if this war goes on anymore there will be no citizens left. What do you expect us to do? Just let them destroy our country? A rebel asked. They wish to kill our king, we can't let them, a guard yelled. You claim they are destroying this country, and what about you? How is this war of yours not destroying the country? Luffy asked the rebels. And what about you, do you think your king wants to rule over a country of corpses? He asked the guards. If you lot cannot grow up and stop trying to kill each other, then I will join this war of yours and I will kill each and every one of you. You can't kill all of us, a guard said, trying to be brave. Without a word Luffy disappeared and reappeared behind the guard. He reached out and calmly crushed his throat, killing him. Does anyone else have something they wish to say? Everyone shook their heads. Good, this war is now over. Without another word Luffy spread his wings and flew off towards the castle. Luffy landed at the castle to see several guards, Vivi and a rebel lying around seriously injured. Everyone besides Vivi readied a weapon when they saw him. Where is Crocodile? Luffy asked in his normal voice. He took my father to the ruins behind the castle. Please Luffy, you have to rescue him, Vivi cried. Princess, you can't trust him. Please princess, don't tell me you made a deal with this demon, a guard begged. Luffy smirked. She did make a deal with me, so what? He asked before flying off, leaving everyone besides Luffy terrified for the princess's soul. Luffy crashed through the roof of the ruins and saw Crocodile standing there shocked. What are? Ag hhh. The last part was because Luffy, without waiting, threw his scythe at Crocodile, cutting off his right hand before it boomeranged back to be caught by its master. Enough talk, Luffy said frostily. For trying to cause harm to my crew and sending this country into civil war, Sir Crocodile of the Shichibukai, I sentence you to death. Using Soru, Luffy charged at Crocodile. Kneed him in the gut, sending him flying through a few walls. It would seem that you can use Haki, Crocodile said, pulling himself up. That alone won't save your worthless life. He sneered. Crocodile stretched out his right arm and sand began to form from it in the shape of a new hand. Luffy charged Crocodile again, only to be thrown back by a large sand blast coming from Crocodile's new hand. Luffy went flying towards a wall, but before he crashed through it he flipped in mid-air, so his feet touched the wall and pushed off flying towards Crocodile. Luffy threw his scythe once more, only for Crocodile to duck under it. He then followed his throw through with a slash of his greatsword that was blocked by Crocodile's hook. Luffy gave a smirk that promised pain. You forgot something, he said as the point of his scythe stabbed through Crocodile's torso. Crocodile fell to his knees and weakly pulled the scythe out of his back. I guess I should get serious, he coughed weakly. A sandstorm instantly filled the room, obscuring everything from sight. Luffy calmly used his Haki to search for Crocodile, and when he found him he slashed his sword, only for the sandstorm to disappear and for Luffy to find the decapitated body of Nico Robin lying in front of him. I'm going to kill you, Luffy roared out in hatred, looking desperately for Crocodile, but he was nowhere to be seen. The only things in the room was the unconscious king and the dead Robin. When his back was turned, the sand under his feet slowly raised from the ground and formed once more into Crocodile. Calmly and silently Crocodile removed the covering on his hook to reveal a poisoned hook underneath. With a smirk he raised his arm and sent it forward, cutting through a gap in Luffy's armor, poisoning the demon inside. Arrrrggggghhhhh, Luffy screamed in pain as he felt his flesh around the cut burn. He sent out a weak slash with his sword, only for Crocodile to step BCK out of reach. My hook is poisoned. Very soon you will begin to tire. In an hour at the latest you will lose your vision and then you will die. There is no cure. You should just give up now and accept your defeat, Crocodile gloated. Luffy growled, dropped his sword and roughly charged at Crocodile, only for the man to step to the side and kick him, sending him flying through several walls. Luffy pulled himself to his feet and charged at Crocodile again, only to stumble at pause at what was in one of the rooms. Sitting calmly in the room was a man. He looked to be in his 50s, his body was covered in hundreds of scars, his eyes were different colors, his hair was snow white, he was wearing a white lab coat and he was calmly sitting down reading a book. The man looked up at Luffy. "I thank thou for breaking the wall so I can now escape this prison of mine, but I hope thou does not mind if I finish my book for the 8612th time before I leave. So just ignore me and get back to thou pointless fight," he said calmly before going back to his book and completely ignoring Luffy. Unfortunately, this stalled Luffy enough for him to get blasted by Crocodile and caused him to collapse to the ground weakly. Crocodile walked in carrying Luffy's scythe behind him. He walked over in front of Luffy and readied the scythe. He pulled it back and swung forward ready to decapitate Luffy, only for him to stop and fall to the ground dead, Luffy's tail sticking out right through his heart. Weakly, Luffy pulled out his tail and crawled over to Crocodile, desperately searching his body, hoping that he lied and that he had an antidote on him. "What are thou doing?" the man asked, apparently no longer interested in his book. "Poisoned," Luffy gasped. "Looking for antidote. What is the poison on the hook?" he asked, causing Luffy to nod. The man walked over and to Luffy on Crocodile's hook, tasting it. "It is black-tailed scorpion venom," he said after a few seconds. "Thou demon blood should stave of most of the effects, though thou will probably fall unconscious for several days." The man calmly pulled Luffy to his feet and helped steady him. "Now if thou don't mind, I would like to leave this prison of mine and see the sun." Luffy woke up a few days later to a loud argument. "Just tell us who you are," came Nami's shrill voice. "I told thee I will not waste my time explaining my story again when thou captain wakes up," came a familiar voice. "Tell me now or I will kill you," Sally growled out. "Thou have tried that already. What makes thou think that thou will succeed this time?" "Shut up," Luffy growled as he weakly sat up. "Luffy-sama, you're awake," Sally squealed, rushing to his side. "How do you feel?" Cody asked seriously. "Thirsty and my head hurts," Luffy informed the doctor. "Other than that, I'm fine." Luffy turned to face the strange man from the ruins. "Now who are you?" The man pulled a mechanical device out of one of his pockets and started to fiddle with it as he sat down and told his story. "I do not know my name. I have been in that prison of mine for many a year and names are pointless when thou are alone," he said to everyone's surprise. "Why were you locked up?" Vivi asked quietly. "Long ago I was a scientist equal to none. I created objects of incredible nature. One day the war appeared, the angels and the demons attacked each other and mankind was caught in the middle." Everyone listened to the man with rapt attention. "I was approached by three mortal factions, the people of the sky, the people of the land and the fishmen. They bade me to help them and to give them a way to defend themselves, so I did. I created Pluton, Poseidon and Uranus. One day the war ended and the people for whom I created the weapons started to fight amongst themselves. I did not care, for I am just a scientist, but they wanted more and more weapons and threatened me to make them. Naturally I refused. They tried to kill me, but in my experimenting I had made myself immune to death, so they did the only thing they could do: they locked me in that accursed prison. If that poneglyph I saw was anything to go by, then they left fake poneglyphs around the world with the intention of never letting anyone know where the weapons are, what they are or who created them." Everyone paused as they took this in. "So you expect us to believe you are a 400-and-something-year-old scientist who created the most dangerous weapons known to man?" Nami asked, as if he was crazy. 926 actually, the scientist replied. "Definitely crazy," Nami murmured. "What do you plan on doing now that you are free?" Cody asked. "That depends. If the world government hears of my escape, they will hunt me down, so I cannot stay here." The scientist turned to face Luffy. "If thou do not mind, I would like to join thou on the journey." Luffy nodded. "You can join us, but what shall we call you?" "There was a story told when I was a child. It was a story of a great inventor who created a maze unlike any other, and in the very center of the maze he had his workshop. The man was known as Daedalus, and if thou wouldn't mind, I would like to be known as such," Daedalus informed the group. "Hey Daedalus, what is that you're working on?" Usopp asked curiously. Daedalus held out what he was working on and everyone saw it was a mechanical sparrow. He calmly threw the bird into the air and it started to fly around the room to everyone's awe. "Just a simple toy," he remarked. "Simple?" Usopp asked incredulously. "I have seen nothing like it and you built it in an hour." Daedalus just shrugged before going to work on something else. "Luffy-sama, do you trust him?" Sally asked quietly as everyone moved away. "His story is outlandish, but he has given me no reason to distrust him yet," Luffy told her. "I heard him say when I woke up that you tried to kill him. What happened?" Sally blushed as if ashamed. "He wouldn't talk and I lost my temper. I apologize, Luffy-sama. I tried to poison him but he remained unaffected, so I eventually shot an arrow through his heart. He yet again remained unaffected and pulled the arrow out, but any part of it that entered his body was gone. He is hiding something." Luffy nodded. "Keep an eye on him for now. He hasn't given a reason to distrust him, but neither has he given a reason not to distrust him." "As you command, Luffy-sama," Sally replied. "What happened while I was unconscious?" he asked. "The war ended. People from both sides are saying a demon straight from hell threatened to kill them." Sally and Luffy smirked at this. "Crocodile is dead and has been found as a traitor, though Smoker was given the credit. Finally, most of Baroque Works' agents have been arrested." Luffy pulled himself out of bed. "Okay, good, I have somewhere to be. I will be back in the morning," he told everyone as he left the room. Luffy landed on the boat silently and curled his wings up. Calmly he walked forward and entered the captain's cabin. He walked inside and pulled the person in the bed out, waking him up. "What's going on?" Smoker growled, looking around before his gaze fixed on Luffy. "Straw Hat, what do you want?" Luffy calmly dropped Smoker on his bed. "We need to talk," he said simply. "About what?" Smoker asked as he lit a cigar. "A Shichibukai tried to gain possession of one of the 3 great weapons. According to Gramps, several high-ranking marine officials are corrupt as well. Other Shichibukai are probably corrupt and the pirates from here on out are going to get stronger." "What's your point?" Smoker growled. "I almost died. I am only alive now due to a lucky coincidence. If it was you against Crocodile you would have lost," Luffy told him. "So, my point is that you are weak. However, you are a good man. If you want, I can train you to get stronger. I like you, Smoker, and I don't want you to die." "Forget it." Straw Hat refused to be trained by a pirate. "Very well," Luffy said, getting up. "I have contacted Grandpa. I told him you were a good man, just not strong enough to look after yourself in the Grand Line, yet he will be training you." With that, Luffy left. Luffy was annoyed. They had been at the castle for several days after he had reawoken, and in that time the arguing hadn't stopped once. Nami was saying that because they saved Vivi and the entire kingdom from Crocodile and Baroque Works, they should ask for a reward. Usopp would argue that Vivi was their friend and as such they shouldn't ask for money from her. Cody was yelling at Zoro for drinking all his medical alcohol while Zoro was yelling at him for interrupting his nap. Sally was yelling at Daedalus because he refused to go into further detail about his life than what he had previously mentioned, claiming it was pointless and a waste of time. Usopp would occasionally yell at Daedalus' father, claiming that the Klima tact was a shoddy piece of weaponry any toddler could make. And Daedalus would yell at anyone who got too close to him while he was tinkering with some piece of machinery or another, which was all the time. "Shut up!" Luffy roared, quieting everyone instantly. Luffy surveyed the group before continuing. "We are comrades, friends, family. We are Nakama, so why is it that for the last 4 days you lot have been arguing non-stop?" he asked angrily. Everyone was quiet and didn't say anything to Luffy's annoyance. "They're bored," Vivi said, walking through the door. Luffy glared at her, thinking it over before sighing. "I guess you were right. It looks like we will be leaving then." Luffy looked at his pirates. "We are to be leaving in an hour. Gather your stuff." Nami, Usopp, Cody and Vivi instantly started to complain, but a glare from Luffy shut them up. "Vivi, will you be joining us?" Luffy asked the princess kindly. Vivi hesitated before replying. "I'm sorry guys, but I need to stay here for my people," she said tearfully. Everyone nodded sadly at this but got back to work preparing to go. They quickly gathered all of their equipment. Daedalus grabbed lots of mechanical parts to tinker with. Nami made sure to get some food and Cody stocked up on more medical alcohol. Soon they were all ready to go back to the Going Merry. Once they had set sail on the Going Merry and Alabasta was out of sight, Luffy gathered the crew in the kitchen and set them down for a group meeting. "Okay," He said, I didn't bring this up at the castle because I believed you guys needed some rest and time to relax, however I need a rundown of what happened. Zoro, you start first. Zoro gathered himself and started. I fought Mr. One, also known as Daz Bones, a former bounty hunter from the West Blue known for taking assassinations. He had eaten a devil fruit that allowed his body to turn into blades, as such his body was as hard as steel and almost impossible to cut. He said to most of the crew's shock. How did you win? Nami asked, surprised. Zoro smirked, I learned how to cut steel. There are said to be many ways to cut steel. Mihawk knew at least 6. Which way did you use? Cody asked, to everyone's surprise. They had forgotten he traveled with Mihawk for a while. I used my meditation training to tap into the Wado Ichimonji's spirit and allow it to guide me. Did the spirit materialize? Luffy asked. Zoro shook his head. No, if I had to describe how it felt as if the sword's spirit and mine had merged. Luffy thought for a while before replying. In that case, your training now is to either converse with the Wado Ichimonji spiritually or to get its spirit to form in front of you. Under no circumstances are you to do this with Kotetsu III, Luffy said sternly. Got it, Zoro confirmed. Cody, you're up. I fought that cross-dresser Mr. 2 Bon Clay, Cody said. He was a master martial artist and was stronger than me. The only way I was able to beat him was by using electric grid. I surrounded the area with electrically charged feathers and then using my powers I connected them in a grid of electricity. When he was surrounded and unable to move, I then threw an electo grenade at him, knocking him into the grid and electrocuting him to death. It's clear that you rely on your powers too much, Luffy said, shocking everyone with the bluntness of his criticism. However, as you have no training in martial arts, it would be pointless trying to teach you anything now. Luffy, aren't you being too hard on him? Nami asked angrily. Luffy stared at her coolly, but Nami refused to back down. We are pirates. His fight with Mr. 2 would have ended in his death if Mr. 2 was even a little stronger. Cody's powers are either fast and weak or strong and slow. If he does not get better soon, he will die, Luffy said calmly. Get to the point, Cody shouted in anger. Luffy smirked. In Whiskey Peak, I noticed that your powers generated an electromagnetic field that could be used to manipulate metallic objects. I want you to learn how to control this enough to make a coin land on heads 100 times in a row. And how exactly will that be useful? Cody growled out. Sally had enough and without warning shot an arrow at Cody's head, only for Luffy's tail to snatch it out of the air. Bullets, swords, arrows, these all have metal. If you can learn to control metal objects, each of these are useless against you, and the reason I am having you practice with the coins is to gain control. Luffy then turned and glared at Sally. Do you mind explaining why you just tried to kill one of your nakama? He spat. Sally turned bright red. Sorry Lu Luffy-sama, she squeaked. But he was being rude ttt to you. Do it again and you will no longer be a straw hat. Why yes thank you Luffy-sama, Sally said repeatedly, bowing her head. Nami slammed her fist on the table. Are you kidding? That bitch almost killed Cody, she shouted angrily. Are thou and the doctor courting? Daedalus asked curiously as he tinkered with what looked to be a mechanical squirrel. What? Nami stuttered, turning bright red. Of course not. Why yeah, why would you think that? Cody asked, also red. Thou seem oddly protective of each other and seem to always be close to one another, the inventor remarked. Hey yeah, now that you mention it, he's right, Usopp realized. Enough! Shouted a bright red Nami. That's not what we are talking about. What we're talking about is that bitch almost killed Cody. Thou assassin has obviously been raised in an environment where one's commander is to be respected at all times. That thou doctor did not show respect to thou captain was intolerable to her. She obviously needs time to adjust to the informal atmosphere. But now that thou captain has forbid her from harming the crew members, she will not do it again. Daedalus said, not once looking up from his work. But, Nami stuttered. Nami, you man well, but it has been sorted, just leave it, Zoro said. Fine, Nami sighed. Nami, would you tell us how your fight went? Luffy asked carefully. I fought against Miss Doublefinger, Nami said. She had eaten the spike devil fruit and could make spikes appear all over her body. She was able to get a surprise attack on me, damaging my left arm, but otherwise I won thanks to the clean attack Usopp made for me, she said, finishing with a grin. I guess the toy that thou sniper made can be useful in competent hands, Daedalus said smirking. Why don't you build a better weapon then? Usopp growled out. I do not have the required parts, Daedalus said simply, so it will just have to wait until we reach land. Usopp, you and Sally fought together, right? How did your fight go? Luffy asked before Usopp could say something else. Sally and I fought against Mr. Fore and a weird penguin lady. They used explosive baseballs and holes to fight us with. They would disappear down the holes then reappear. Mr. Fore would hit a ball towards us with great accuracy, then it would explode. I was able to surprise Miss Merry Christmas with my great skills and then shoot her with an exploding star, Usopp said proudly. After that, Sally was quickly able to kill Mr. Fore with an arrow to his head. Luffy turned to Sally. Is this true? It is correct, except for the fact that she was a mole woman, not a penguin, and long nose. Forgot to mention that the Bama dog cannon hybrid, Sally replied. Okay, here's what I have decided. Usopp and Nami need to work better on their observation haki. They can't afford to take any hits, so they need to be masters at it soon. Sally, your fighting style works best when you can maneuver yourself best, so I will teach you Geppo. Luffy told the three. Usopp, Nami, for you two to work better on your observation haki, you two are to wear blindfolds and actually fight each other for a minimum of an hour a day. This is not only about dodging attacks, you are to try and beat the other person. Got it? Nami and Usopp replied simultaneously. That is all, Daedalus. I need to talk to you in private, Luffy said, moving to his cabin. What does thou wish to talk about? Daedalus asked, walking into the cabin. Is it about my past? Luffy shook his head and gestured to an empty seat. No, your past is your own. Besides, it is a bit too large to talk about. What I wanted to ask is, how did you know Sally was an assassin? The crew do not know it. The assassin Sally walks in such a way no sound is made. She surveys a room as soon as she enters it, and her weapon is made to kill in both close and long range. Daedalus explained. What else would she be? Luffy nodded. Very well, but I ask that you don't tell anyone else. Very well. About what you said about Usopp and Cody, you said that to avoid the oncoming fight, didn't you? Luffy asked. It would be problematic for me if thou crew killed itself just after I joined. Luffy raised an eyebrow at this. You keep saying, thou crew? Do you not see yourself as a member? Thou crew does not see me as a member. Swordsman is the only person besides thou who does not have a problem with me joining thou crew. Daedalus explained. They will accept you soon, Luffy promised. Also, may I ask, what is the deal with the mechanical creatures you are making? Daedalus smirked and stopped fiddling with the one in his hands. Now that would be telling. Luffy grinned at that. Very well, you may leave now. Somewhere far, far away, Smoker and Tashigi both collapsed in their separate beds. They were both covered in bruises, sweat and blood. Despite their exhaustion, they were able to mutter two words. Damn Straw Hat. Luffy looked around in annoyance. How the hell did we get here? He growled out. The Going Merry had been sailing along happy as can be when it entered a mist. Normally that wouldn't be so bad, but sometime in the mist the boat came to a stop, and when the mist disappeared the Straw Hats found their boat was in the middle of a dark, empty city. There was spiked towers reaching up into the sky, taller than any building the Straw Hats had ever seen. Where are we? Zoro asked, looking around. Gear City, Daedalus announced ominously. Why you can know this place? Usopp asked nervously. I created it, Daedalus announced to everyone's shock. You created an entire city? Cody asked skeptically. Daedalus sighed. It was back when I was about 200 years old. I had a project in mind and I needed a lab big enough for the project to work. The lab that I created was named Gear City. Gear City was used for my project to create living, thinking machines. These machines were labeled the Auto Gears, and they are one of my greatest creations. To protect them, I created a special machine that would allow thy city to disappear and reappear in random places. It seems that thy city has become aware of my freedom and returned for me. That's good, right? Nami asked. Daedalus smirked. It would be if these citizens of Gear City did not wish for death on organic beings. It is because of this belief that I closed Gear City off from the world, and yet here it is. So because this place is here, you believe that the Auto Gears are now free? Luffy asked. Yes, and most likely they will try and resume their old mission to destroy all organic life forms, Daedalus said grimly. Father, I'm hurt, a female voice said from behind them. It's like you don't approve of your own children. The group turned around to see standing on the Mary's mast a purple humanoid, cat-like robot. It was small and only stood at 5 feet with a delicate frame. However, all over its body it had sharp edges and claws instead of hands. Where the robot had a tail, a long razor-thin like whip extended until it was 3 meters long. "What does thou want, Shadow?" Daedalus asked forcefully. Usopp and Nami screamed, realizing that this was one of the auto gears, and quickly jumped behind Zoro to hide. Zoro pulled out his swords, Sally noticed an arrow, Cody gathered electricity in his palm, and Luffy just stood back watching. "I just wish for my father to approve of me. Is that so bad?" Shadow asked, sounding upset. "Thou wishes to destroy life. I created thou not to destroy but to help me on my experiments," Daedalus yelled. "Is this one of those auto gears?" Zoro asked. "It doesn't look so tough." Before anyone could even process what had happened, a long cut appeared on Zoro's face just below his left eye. "Please do not interrupt mine and father's conversation," Shadow asked forcefully. "You bitch," Zoro growled and was about to attack when Daedalus stepped in the way. "Shadow, the people thou sees before thou are my friends, do not attack them again." Shadow tilted her head to the side. "Father has never had friends before, what changed?" it asked curiously. "These straw has asked nothing of myself. They're just happy with my company, and I owe the captain a debt," Daedalus announced, causing the group to smile. "Brother Chaos will not be pleased," Shadow said simply. "Thou'll let that monster out?" Daedalus stuttered, shocking the group. Shadow jumped off of the mast and landed on the ground lightly without a sound. "I apologize, father, but an angel found its way here and destroyed most of us. We needed Brother Chaos or we would have surely perished," Shadow apologized. "Who is this Brother Chaos?" Luffy asked. "Chaos is the most vile of my creations here in Gear City. I found a rare living metal and used it to create my most unique auto gear, and it worked. However, Chaos started to go crazy, and very soon all he desired was power. He tried to merge himself with me, something that should have been impossible, but he would have succeeded if I hadn't managed to trap him and lock him up. And now the monster is free to roam yet again." "Father, it is worse than you feared," Shadow mentioned almost nervously. "Brother Chaos merged with the angel and now he is too powerful. All of us remaining live in fear of him or have vowed loyalty to him." "See, can't why you just turn him off?" Usopp asked, scared. "None of the auto gears have an off switch," Daedalus said simply. "The only way for Chaos to die is for him to be destroyed." "Then we just destroy it, simple," Sally announced. "It is not so simple. Chaos has absorbed the power of an angel. We need to prepare or Chaos will kill us all," Daedalus told her. "What do you have in mind?" Luffy asked. "We need to find my old workshop. If we can get enough time, I can make a few preparations," Daedalus announced before turning to face Shadow. "Will thou help us or side against us?" Shadow paused for a minute before replying, "I will help you, father. Brother Chaos has hurt too many auto gears to be allowed to live any longer." Daedalus nodded. "Then let's go."